I think all of you already have an idea of how a panel discussion goes, meaning you are free to ask questions and address your question to any of our speakers this afternoon, including Dr. Kingombe, who delivered this talk online. So just to start off, Sister Ameline, thank you for waking us up this afternoon with your presentation. That was interesting. So, sister, you talked about diversity, right? Among other things, equity, diversity, and inclusion in philanthropy. Now, I would like to ask you to talk more about diversity. In what way do you think can diversity contribute to Asian philanthropy today? I can hear you, but I can't hear you. Can we increase the volume of the microphones, please?
As what I have said in my sharing, diversity is really the differences, human differences, whether in race, in age, in religion, in the political, what's this background. So in the in the Asian context, everybody is different. We are here represented in Asia, right? With the different faith. Maybe many of us here are in the Catholic faith, but some of here are also, yeah. But everybody is as diverse, but it's still included. The philanthropists remember that in diversity, nobody can exclude, even in the differences in background or orientation. That is, I think, for me, the donors will look into it, whether I'm beautiful or she is not beautiful, or she is rich or kind or small. So you could include us.
I think all of us, everybody here in this room would agree that diversity indeed exists in Asia. We are very diverse from different points of view, and diversity can be a good source of enrichment for everybody. But on the other hand, diversity can also be quite problematic. It can also be an impediment to certain philanthropic activities that we want to carry out. Now, sister, based on your experience, personal experience, have you encountered a similar situation where diversity turns out to be negative or an impediment to your philanthropic activity? And how did you go about it?
Actually, me personal or as a congregation, we did not have any experience yet. Because just like our first funding agency, you see that, our fund, first dinner for a cause, there were rich people who contributed to that concert, and there were also the low-income people. They were able to relate to us. Not only that they could donate $100,000, but those who attended also on the platform of online, 3 pesos or 100 pesos, they can still watch. They can still give, even though they are not rich. Did I get the question right? Or it's not clear my
Are we
answer?
causing more diversity, sister? Yes, I think I got the point, sister. Now, asking the same question, this time I will address this to Father Alvarado
Thanks be to God.
because he shared about, he talked about practically what the chameleon fathers have been doing, no? About healthcare services, and not only in the here in the Philippines, but you have gone international. You've been to Taiwan, Italy, right? No? But from what I understood from your presentation, you've been providing healthcare services basically still to Filipinos, right? Okay. Now, in the future, what are the plans of the Chameleons? Are you thinking of expanding the same services you're offering to Filipinos worldwide to other nationals? And what challenges do you foresee you would have to deal with in the future?
Thank you, Father Sar. For the chameleons, we really would want that our ministry becomes impactful in the Philippines. As I was telling a while ago, we have been here for the past 50 years, but in the Philippines, we are not that well known because for the longest time, we haven't really documented what we do and publicized what we do. But in the next course of, I think, 5 to 10 years, we would really want to make an impact in the field of dementia care. Why? Because Philippines is a growing population. And so more elderly people are going to that stage. And it is not enough that we deal with the issues or concerns of the elderly, but there are specified concerns like if you're an elder, you're more prone to dementia. And so there is a specific care as to people living with dementia. And so with that, with our nursing home, we want to establish really dementia care centers so that we can address this pressing need when it comes to dementia care. During our apostolates in our nursing home, you would see elderly people who are shouting, having their tantrums. And it is not enough that you have all the elderly in one place. Otherwise, some are very violent, and that would put uh, the health of the other old people there. So their health is more at risk. So in a special way, if we expand our institution into dementia care, then we are addressing actually one pressing issue in the Philippines, and that is giving quality of life to the elderly and even to those living with dementia. For sure, some of us here have had an experience with our relatives or our family members losing that memory, that precious memory that we have with them. And if we go a long way in the chameleon ministry to provide dementia care for these people, then we can at least lessen the progress of the case of dementia. And with that, we can at least create an impact to having more quality life and quality time for Filipino families with their elderly loved ones.
Before we continue with our panel, there's a request here. I think this is urgent. Paging Dr. Mildred, are you around? I think you are wanted. Somebody's looking for you outside. Thank you. Two questions just came to me, both addressed to Dr. Septiani. Ms. Septiani, let me start with this first question. How can smaller organizations or new initiatives compete for attention and funds against larger and more established charities? I repeat, how can smaller organizations or new initiatives compete for attention and funds against larger and more established charities?
Okay. So I think for the philanthropic organizations is not only about the understanding the process. Of course, it's very important when you actually understand how to present your initiative to the social investors. Sometimes we actually knows about, for example, we have 600 members. I just had a few meetings before my presentations. they have been with us for a few years. They already part of AVPN for a few years. Then basically they are feel fulfilled with the needs. But then I ask, what actually is, we are not talking about the level of, is it small or big, right? So we're talking about on how this organization, all this level of organization understand to talk or to communicate with this network. So it's not only about having the connections and there is the intentions to do the collaboration or partnership, but the thing, the most important actually on how we understand what is the happening inside the network. What is the thing that actually you understand how to connect with the network. So it's not only about talking about the intentions of doing the collaborations, about having the conversation with stakeholders, with the social investors, if you don't know what's happening in the network, right? So I don't want to categorize based on the small or big. Sometimes big organizations, they also sometimes even doesn't really understand on how to leverage the network. So AVPN here, our position, our role, actually to do the assistance for the members to identify the right partner, the right organizations to help you to actually to make the right connections to the right person in charge in the organizations. Sometimes you understand, okay, Google. So, and then you open Google website. You try to understand what's happening inside the Google organizations. But then did you know who will be the right person to be contacted with? So it's small things, but it's really matters. So with AVPN, we providing the avenue for members to actually to get the connections with the right people in the organizations. So it's small thing, but it's really matters. Then when you already get the connections, then you start understand on how to, from their perspective. Sometimes we cannot only thinking about ourselves if we want to starting the conversation with other people, right? You also need to understand from their perspective. Then you can have the common language, the same understanding on at least see things from the same perspective, right? So with AVPN network, actually you can learn on how to see the perspective from government side. How you actually can connect it with the university because you also need the data from the research. So how this data actually can complementing your effort and to help you, your organizations to build the strategy on how to connecting with these specific teams, for example. So on how with this network, you can understand on how to creating a business proposal. So it's not only talking about on how you compete within small or big, sometimes on how you can really understand the process of doing the process on the right track, and it helps you, your organizations, to achieving your missions. That's from me, Mother.
Thank you for that answer, which I think also somewhat answers this follow-up question. How can AVPN help small nonprofit organizations, family foundations
I
to
can
be
answer that as
sustainable?
well.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay. So basically like nonprofit organizations, like local nonprofit organizations, social enterprises, they are to be honest, they are not qualified to be part of our members. But then we acknowledge them as part of the ecosystem. That's the reason why we understand these 600 members, they have investee, they have grantees that need to be supported. Then we call deal shell platform. So these funders can actually give a recommendation for this nonprofit and these social enterprises to be part of AVPN network for free. Yeah. The good thing for funders, they actually need at some point, they cannot forever supporting this investee and grantees. They also need the exit point at some point, right? Then for funders itself, there is a possibility for them to find a partner to supporting these grantees or investee. And then for the grantees and investee as well, it's good because they will get the visibility and potential support from other AVPN members. That's the way that we providing the opportunity for nonprofit. But then why actually like Red Cross also is a huge international organizations can be part of our members. Why NVU also can be part of our members? Because they already have the capacity also on supporting the ecosystem. International organization is global organizations on how there's intentionally to do the work underground. So there is the way that I think for AVPN role at this standpoint, we also try to acknowledge the visibility of nonprofit. And AVPN itself, as a social investor network, we have the capacity to support, to even advocate our members to do the collective actions. So we successfully to advocate collective actions across AVPN members to giving a 25 million US dollar for less like 2 years with specific teams, unrestricted grants. So it means that the unrestricted grants, they can do for the operational expenses as well. So it means they can do for anything based on the requirement from the funders. So this the power of AVPN network that we can actually provide to the ecosystem. And that's the way that why actually I'm really keen to have the capacity building fund with Dr. Glenda and SRG. Because of this nonprofit like Father JP, Chameleon, and Father Alan as well, like Father Gerald. The position of nonprofit now quite different. It's very unique. They have the capacity for their own. And how AVPN can help to scaling their internal organizations, so to help them even more sustainable in the future. And the position of nonprofit like Father JP organizations can be equal with funders. So how actually maybe next presentation, Father JP can be more confident to presenting the organizations and not only asking, but on how to positioning, okay, can you complementing my effort? So additional effort, it will be different approach, Father, which actually is very interesting from the funder's perspective.
Thank you, Ms. Tiani. Now I have a question here for Dr. Christian Ingombe. This is quite a technical question. If I have a very good project with high potential for profit and significant impact on the environment, what is the ROI in interest rate per annum required? Do I need a venture capitalist or impact investor or grant? You want me to repeat that?
I think I got the question. Well, there are there are a number of considerations that you need to have when reaching out? I mean, I guess the question is asked from a company owner of either a social enterprise or let's say sustainable business. Already that is important to clarify what type of enterprise we're talking about. Then we also need to take into consideration where the company is in, let's say, the life cycle of a company. Are we talking about really early stage, or are we already embarking on the growth stage, Series A, Series B? And then there was a question about the financial instrument in Africa, which is the region where I do most of my work. Most of the companies actually have a preference for, let's say, a debt instrument, private debt. But that also sometimes is due to the fact that the company owners do not have sufficient knowledge about other opportunities that you could have, other financial instruments that they could have access to, such as convertible notes or mezzanine, or of course private equity. Yeah, so what was the second half of the question? If you could repeat that.
Do I need a venture capitalist or impact investor or grant?
Yeah. Well, again, it's important to understand that venture capitalism is not necessarily the solution for all companies. As you heard from my presentation, there kind of, you can kind of the spectrum, you can divide it into what I call the impact first investor, which is, as I mentioned, investors who, as a minimum, has a flaw, which is capital preservation, but do not necessarily look for a very high financial return. So that return could range, let's say, from 0 to 5%. And then you have, and this type of investors is what is where the, let's say, the faith-based investors come into the picture, because they put a greater emphasis on how the solution on the activity of the company they're investing in is actually contributing to achieving sustainable development goals. And that's why they're willing to have this trade-off to benefit the social environmental impact at the expense of financial return. But as I said, an impact investor is not a venture philanthropist. So they are at this expectation that you need to have a certain amount of return on investment. And then the other category, as I said, is the finance first impact investors, where because of fiduciary responsibilities, this could be institutional investor like a pension fund, or it could be most, let's say, more conventional venture capitalists, where their limited partners investing into their fund do have an expectation. Also, they have to take into consideration the risk. When you're investing in emerging markets, there's a much higher risk level because of macroeconomic issues such as the currency depreciation. I just came back from the Africa Impact Summit in Kenya. Unfortunately, the Generation Z, the Gen Z, are demonstrating very violently in the street because of their unhappiness with the tax being imposed by the government. So there are a number of issues that need to be dealt with, in the structuring of the deal that has to take into consideration the higher level of risk. So it's important as a company owner that you also do your due diligence, and that you look at what are the profile of the investor. Is it, as I said, is it an impact investing? Is it a more conventional venture capital fund? Or is it a philanthropist? You need to think about what is best for you and do your proper analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kingambi. I have one more question for Sister. You talked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you imagine can lack of equity negatively impact philanthropy? How do you imagine lack of equity negatively impact philanthropy?
Well, for me, equity as the word itself is positive. With the lack, I could not imagine it. So, but you know, in the image, I was looking at the image there. They were watching the golf, you know, and there is there the three persons standing there, and then the other two were not given a stand, but the smaller one, like me, was given a stand to watch what is happening. So I could not imagine that the world, Christian world, would not give each of us here present here in this congregation the need, our individual need, the congregational need, the organization need. So I would not look at it as negative. I'm always positive.
Okay, sister. Okay, do we still have more time for the panel discussion? Or shall we give the floor to everybody for their final comment or declaration? Short statement to leave for people to think about from our speakers, beginning with Sister Amelie.
I was just interviewed a while ago. For takeaway, I will say, let's keep on praying, let's keep on hoping, and let's look at ourselves as diverse, as equal in resources. That is our strong determination and our hard work, and everything will come. We will look at the pearl of great price, and everything will follow.
Thank you, Sister. Ms. Septiani. Oh, yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so I think from the perspective of collaborations and the ideal partnership, I believe that we also need to understand how to communicating the missions, and also on how to understand the perspective from diverse stakeholders as well, to building the right strategic business model in the future, because there are a lot of potential and opportunities outside. So we are not only talking about grants giving, but also the potential another capital. You mentioned about equity, you mentioned about loan, on how this another financial scheme can help your initiative even more successful, and how to bring diverse stakeholders to complementing the effort, and how to bring this another potential collaborations to supporting the initiative towards the SDGs, because the SDG itself is 2030. Today is 2024, which is for another 6 years. So if you only working by yourself, I believe it must be very difficult. So then on how we positioning ourselves to be more open-minded, to open opportunity from other stakeholders as well. So I will get your closing, Father. So I also actually writing about the Mother Teresa mentions that I can do thing you cannot, right? So you can do thing I cannot. So together we can do great things. So I think this is very beautiful quotes that coming from the Mother Teresa, and I believe all the partnership collaboration is number one, is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Septiani. Now let's listen to Father Alvarado.
From the perspective of building resiliency and sustainability, I think let us always remember how genuine and how sincere is our mission and our advocacy, because we will falter and we will fall short to be resilient and sustainable if we are not rooted in the mission and the advocacies that we have. But in doing so, let us not forget that things should be done strategically, so that charity becomes an organized charity. And when charity is organized and shared, then God's blessing is more magnified. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Alvarado. And of course, last but not the least, let's hear from Dr. Kinkambi.
Yes, first of all, I was very glad to know that APDC has, after the immense success that you have had in Asia, are now also moving your movement and your message to the African continent. And the reason for that is that it's predicted that entrepreneurial philanthropy will gain in popularity in Africa, particularly among young entrepreneurs and investment professionals such as myself. And also, secondly, through tailored messaging about the case for impact investing, which I've been trying to do today, practical guidance and resources as to how to get started, and strategic partnership. I believe that faith asset can be reallocated with a much deeper purpose than what is currently the case. And that's the reason why we are organizing a conference here in Geneva at the World Council of Churches in November, where we are glad to invite Dr. Glenda to be with us and to bring the message and the key takeaways from your conference in Bangkok to Geneva and to the faith-based investor community in Switzerland. And also, younger generation are increasingly seem interested in how faith speaks to larger issues of the world. And it's important to show what they are for, that faith-based organizations really must mobilize to redefine and push the field of impact first, investing forward, and help the economy shift towards improving equity and social justice, as the sister was, one of the sisters in our panel was speaking about in her presentation. It is recommended that African grant-making foundations and philanthropists who have operated along the more traditional grant-making lines actively consider models of entrepreneurial philanthropy to complement their grant-making activities. And additionally, it's also recommended that they support venture philanthropy and impact investing by assisting with referrals, placing capital in venture philanthropy and impact investing models, or by co-investing investment. And last but not least, recognize and regulate impact capital as an investment strategy, which can enable other recommended policy responses, ensure impact investors operate at a very high standard. As it was mentioned when I was introduced, I'm what's known as an accredited SET impact standard trainer, which actually provide certification both for company owners that are transitioning towards becoming social or impact enterprises, as well as asset managers whose investment strategy is fully aligned with the SDGs. And last but not least, it's also recommended to promote impact angel investment in Africa or in Asia through existing angel networks. Thank you again for the opportunity to address this distinguished audience, and I truly apologize for not having had the opportunity to be with you in person, but I'm sure that we will continue to engage on the other side of this conference. I wish you a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kinkambi. At this point, we would like to express our gratitude to all our speakers this afternoon by giving them our token